Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My dear students, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. I welcome all of you to this very interesting video lecture series for class 10th biology. I'm your biology expert Amreena Mehraj, and my dear students, before starting and letting you know what we are going to study in today's lecture, I would take this opportunity to make you go through the syllabus for class 10th biology. Class 10th biology has mainly 6 chapters. Okay. The first and the foremost chapter which you are going to deal with is life processes. Dear students, life processes is a very elaborative chapter. In this chapter, you are going to deal with certain subsections which are themselves a very important and a major topic in itself. In this chapter, you are going to talk about the nutrition in plants and nutrition in animals both. Then you are going to discuss about the process of respiration. All aspects of respiration are to be understood in this particular portion of life processes. Then we have to understand about the system of transportation of substances both in plants as well as animals. Then at the last you have to understand about the system of excretion. So life processes has these 4 important subsections which we have to deal with in a systematic manner. The second chapter is basically a life process, but considering the length and importance of that chapter, NCERT has placed that as a separate chapter. That chapter is control and coordination. Okay. In this chapter, you are going to deal with the nervous system in case of human beings, and you are going to understand about human endocrine system. And after that, I will be teaching you about different types of coordination mechanisms in plants, because plants also respond to the external stimuli. So, in this chapter, again, you're going to deal with both animals as well as plants. So, class 10th biology makes you understand both the zoological aspect as well as the botanical aspect. Means you are dealing with the animals and as well as the plants. After then, you have to go through a very important chapter called reproduction. Again, here you have to deal with the reproduction mechanism, the systems in plants and the systems of reproduction in animals. The 4th chapter you're going to deal with in biology for class 10 is heredity and evolution. You might have heard about you get your characters, whatever are your features, you get them, you inherit them from your parents. So this transmission of characters from the parents to the offspring is what we call the heredity. That's controlled by the genetics. So you are going to deal with that also in class 10 syllabus. And then you might have heard about that over a period of time, an existing species gives rise to a new species. That's called evolution. So you have to have this knowledge about heredity and evolution. So class 10th biology will come to the rescue. You will get to know everything that is fundamental for heredity and evolution over here. The 5th and the 6th chapter are very easy. Let me give you a kind of suggestion over here. For 5th and 6th chapter, all things which will be discussed here will be in your geography also. So geography is going to play an important role here. So 5th chapter is going to be all related with the environment. So the 5th chapter is our environment. Everything about your environment, starting from your food chains and food webs to everything, be it producer, consumers and decomposers. We'll be discussing all that. And last but not the least, you have the 6th chapter itself. That's all about the natural resources, air, water and the land. So the chapter is management of natural resources. So this is the gist of your class 10th biology. We are going to take up this unit, this interesting unit of physiology, that's life processes. And we're going to start with the same. So life processes, the chapter. Today the subtopic is going to be the introduction to life processes. Let me take this opportunity to make you understand what basically is a life process. Dear students, could you think what this organism is? It's a very basic organism because it has got irregular shape. So some of you will be able to, get an idea what it is. Let me tell you, it is nothing. It is basically a unicellular organism. Unicellular organism means an organism which is made up of just one cell. The name of this organism is, yes, it's amoeba. You got it correct. Amoeba, my dear students, is it living or dead? Simple question. It is a living organism. Now let me ask a question. How do you come to this conclusion that amoeba is living? Different students will have different answers. Say for example, the beginner will say that, ma'am, we know from basic classes that amoeba can move. So, amoeba can show movement, or it can move, what you also called locomotion. Am I correct? So, the basic thing which will make you, answer that amoeba is living is that it moves. So, movement is the condition which something must satisfy in order to be called living. Okay, but what if I tell you, is a chair a living thing? You will say no. The basic thing is, ma'am, it cannot move. But what if I make it move with the help of my hand? Suppose I have a pen in my hand. Is it living or dead? It's dead. It's not living. But I apply some force and it will start moving. So it can show movement, but that's not the real movement. So even non-living things can move. So movement is not going to be an essential criteria to call something living or dead. Let me give you one more example. Suppose I take a tree. Visibly, a tree doesn't move from one place to another place. So, does that mean that a tree is a non-living thing? No, a tree is a living thing. So, movements sometimes could be visible. Sometimes you cannot visualize a movement with the help of a naked eye. Okay, so movement is definitely going to decide whether something is living or not. But other than movement, there should be some other feature. The other thing, some student will say, ma'am, an amoeba can grow. It can enlarge in size. So that means anything which can show growth is living. So amoeba can grow, so it's living. A plant can grow, it's living. But this pen cannot grow, it's not living. So growth is also a good criteria to decide whether something is living or not. Okay. Some can answer, ma'am, amoeba can repair its body. Like, if its membrane gets cut by some reasons, it can join it back. It can seal its plasma membrane. That means it can repair itself. If a plant gets an injury, it can also heal up. Suppose if you cut a bark, if you cut a branch from a plant, it can heal its body. If you get a cut on your body, you can heal your body. Your body rather heals by itself. So anything which can have this power of repair is a living thing. What beyond that? What beyond that? So these are some of the criteria to decide whether something is living or not. Let us go beyond that. Let us have some more idea. Tell me, what do living organisms need to survive? They need first and foremost the food. Is amoeba taking up food? Answer is yes. So, anything which can intake food and utilize it to get energy. Yes, ma'am, amoeba takes up food and it utilizes that food to get its energy. Okay? So this is a process which amoeba is doing. What is this process? Is intake of food and utilization of food. Okay, let me tell you. Does amoeba require oxygen? Answer is yes. So amoeba is performing exchange of gases. It's taking up oxygen from outside. It's releasing carbon dioxide outside. Where from this carbon dioxide is coming is basically amoeba's internal processes are generating carbon dioxide. So amoeba is performing what? Exchange of gases. It's taking up some gas. It's releasing some gas. So this is also a process which amoeba is carrying out. Amoeba, other than that, has to, break down food to get energy. Okay. Amoeba also needs to remove wastes outside its body. So, what is happening over here? We are focusing that amoeba has to perform these processes. And these processes are very important for amoeba to remain alive. Here comes the twist. This process, the process of intake of food and utilization of food, this is what you call nutrition. Okay? This process of exchange of gases is respiration, as I'm doing. Suppose I inhale in. So I'm taking in oxygen, and then once I exhale, I give out carbon dioxide. This is respiration. Okay. Amoeba has to break down food inside its cytoplasm to get energy. That's also respiration, but that's called intracellular respiration. These two are different. I'll make you understand later on. So respiration is what? Exchange of gas, that we know what's called breathing. Another sort of respiration is taking place inside the cell, whereby food is broken down to release energy. So amoeba is doing both. It's doing this exchange of gas, it's doing breakdown of glucose or food to get energy. So it's performing both respiration at this stage, respiration inside the cell. Amoeba has to remove waste. We all know that once we take in some food, all of the food is not digested, and then you are left with some waste. You have to remove that waste from the body. Amoeba has to remove that waste from the body. That process is called excretion. Okay? Suppose amoeba has some substance over here. It has to transport this substance over here. This is a very simple type of transport taking place inside the cytoplasm. So amoeba has to perform what? Transportation also. So what do I give you? Nutrition, respiration, intracellular respiration, excretion, transportation. What are all these? They are, ma'am, they are some processes. Now, what is the fun of these processes? They are very, very important for maintenance of life. They're very, very important for keeping an organism alive. Such processes, my dear students, are called life processes. Very simple. So any such process which is very important for the maintenance, for the survival of a living organism is called a life process. We have here talked about an amoeba, which is just one cell. It's a very simple organism. So this cell can move, this cell can show growth, this cell can repair itself. But other than that, the cell has to perform this process of intake of food and utilization of food, what we call nutrition. So nutrition is one important process for maintaining life. That's why you call nutrition a life process. Similarly, amoeba has to perform intake of oxygen, removal of carbon dioxide, what we call exchange of gases. This process is respiration, and in this case it's simple diffusion. If you notice, it's just diffusion of gases. It's not so complex like you people. You have a complete respiratory system for this thing. Almighty Allah has provided you with a pair of lungs to perform this process of exchange of gases. But it's very simple for amoeba. Similarly, amoeba also has to break down the food inside the cytoplasm. That's what is called intracellular respiration. Amoeba also has wastes inside its cytoplasm. It has to remove that waste. That's the process of excretion. Amoeba has to, perform transportation of substances in cytoplasm. You have to transport substances from one part of the body to another part of the body, but it's very simple over here. So transportation is another life process. So if it's a unicellular organism or a multicellular organism, there are these processes which an organism has to perform in order to maintain its life. And all these processes are called life processes. So if anybody will ask you, what is the criteria you decide whether something is living or not, you could answer that movement is the basic criteria which will decide whether something is living or not. Growth is a criteria which will decide whether something is living or not. Repair is a criteria which will decide whether something is living or not. But other than these, life processes are the criteria which will decide whether something is living or not. If something is showing these processes, definitely the organism is a living organism. Okay? Now let's move ahead. My dear students, there is a very important actual question which you need to understand at this point of time. Let me make you understand that. So it's a very simple question. Why is diffusion insufficient to meet the oxygen requirements of a multicellular organism? Now, my dear students, right now I made you understand about amoeba. So amoeba, this is the nucleus which I am drawing. It's what? It's a unicellular organism. Okay? On the other hand, if you take a human being, like the body of yourself, you are a multicellular organism. Try and understand the difference. The question is very simple, but you need to get an understanding. Unicellular organism has just a single cell. And if this cell requires oxygen, oxygen will simply diffuse from the environment into the cytoplasm. Very simple. What is happening over here is simple diffusion. Diffusion, what you say, the movement of a gas from a region of higher concentration, which is outside, to a region of lower concentration, which is inside. So the gas will itself flow from the environment into the cytoplasm. That process is simple diffusion. No energy is utilized. You don't have any complex system in this single cell. And what is produced inside is carbon dioxide as a waste during metabolic activities. That carbon dioxide also diffuses simply outside. So here what is helping in this respiration is the process of simple diffusion. But what about the human being? What about the multicellular organisms? Will diffusion be sufficient? No. Your body is made up of millions of cells. Am I correct? So you have 10 to the raised power 14 cells in your body, approximately. So millions of the cells. Is that like each cell in contact with environment? Is each of your cell in contact with environment? Well, is the answer yes or no? No, all of our cells are not in the contact of environment. Even these cells of the skin, which are in the contact of environment, the outer layer is dead as a sort of protection. So how will our cells, how will our internal cells, how will our brain, how will our digestive system, our kidneys, our heart, how is that tissue going to get oxygen, because the cells are not in contact of environment? Amoeba, a single cell, paramecium, a single cell, these simple organisms, their body is just made of a single cell, and in them simple diffusion is sufficient for, exchange of gases. Simple diffusion is sufficient for obtaining oxygen. But in case of multicellular organisms, simple diffusion is not sufficient, because each cell is not in the contact of environment, and we are made up of millions of cells. That's why multicellular organisms have got specific systems for the process of respiration. Okay? Like in the case of human beings, Almighty Allah has provided us lungs. And these lungs have this surface meant for what? Meant for removal of carbon dioxide from the body and uptake of oxygen from the air. So this job of getting oxygen into the blood and taking out carbon dioxide out from the blood, that's not done by each cell individually in human beings. No. For that purpose, Almighty Allah has provided us a system, a respiratory system, which performs this job. The reason, because every cell is not in contact with the environment. So being a multicellular organism, we have specific systems to perform specific tasks. Similarly, for the removal of the waste, amoeba doesn't have any sophisticated system, but we have kidneys, we have a proper excretory system. For circulation of substances, amoeba doesn't require a complex system, but we require heart, blood vessels, and blood for transportation of substances. So that's the difference between a unicellular organism and a multicellular organism. This is very simple, doesn't require any sophisticated complex for any purpose, be it oxygen requirement or anything else. Here simple processes like diffusion are sufficient. But in this case, a multicellular organism, it's made up of millions of cells. So simple processes like diffusion aren't sufficient. So each and every cell is not going to individually perform diffusion, because each and every cell is not in direct contact with the environment. Almighty Allah has provided specific systems to perform specific jobs, so that this body will work smoothly, and there will be a good amount of control and coordination between all sorts of activities in human beings. Let us now try and answer another question from our textbook. That is also a very simple question. This question is also very, very simple, and today's lecture was all pertaining to this particular question. The question is, what criteria do we use to decide whether something is alive? So what is the condition, what is the criteria that's used to decide whether something is alive or not? The criteria is very simple. The first and the foremost criteria is that the body should be able to move. It should show movement. Movement is the basic criteria we use to decide whether something is alive or not. Now you have to remember that the movement sometimes is going to be visible, but at some times you will not be able to see the visible movement, but there will definitely be the movements taking place at the molecular level. Like say for example, if I'm right now moving my hand, it means that I can move my body and I'm alive. But if I'm in a rest position, does it mean that I'm not moving, so I'm dead? No. The reason is because at the cellular level, if you will take my individual cell, in that cell, there will be movement of molecules taking place from one place to another place. Okay, so you need to understand, it's not always my hand showing movement which will decide I am alive. No, you have to put into consideration my cells. And inside the cells, you have cytoplasm, you have different structures inside the cell. They are also showing movement which is not visible to your naked eye. So you have to put that movement which is happening at the cellular level, movement which is happening at the molecular level. That is also going to decide whether something is alive or not. So visible movement is not the only criteria. The movement at the cellular level is also to be put into consideration. And this is far more good criteria to decide whether something is alive or not. Say for example, if I'll stop talking and if I'll stop moving, That means I'm not showing any visible movement. But am I alive? Yes. What is the proof? Is the movement which is taking place at my cellular level. The movements of the substances which are moving at my cellular level. Be it the proteins, the carbohydrates which are moving. So there are movements at molecular level taking place which are going to decide whether something is alive or not. Okay. Another criteria is simple criteria. That's the criteria of growth. If something is capable of showing growth, it's alive. A plant grows, an amoeba grows, a human being grows. So growth is an indication of something being alive. Another criteria which is very basic is that the organism must show repair in its body. Means if it gets some injury, it should have the capability to repair itself. Then it's alive. Another very important criteria to be alive is response. This is very important. Response to stimuli. Say for example, a living body like you people, you are listening right now. So you are listening to the sound. So sound becomes a stimulus. You can see with the help of light. So light becomes the stimulus. You can taste something. Okay, you can taste something. So a person can perceive, a living organism, a cat, a dog, a rat, a human being, all can respond to different sorts of stimuli. That means we can listen and then we can process this information and then we can respond. So living organisms have to react to every sort of environmental stimuli. Be it some sound, be it the light, be it the taste, be it any sort, be it the touch. Okay, these are some basic, stimulus which an organism perceives from outside. A human being, for example. So, a dead body, a man who is dead will not be able to, respond to my sound because that body is dead. But a living organism will understand, will perceive sound, can see, can visualize things, can taste things, can feel the touch. So something is alive only when that object, that body can respond to some sort of stimulus. Okay. Now, there must be a question in your mind that, ma'am, do plants respond to the stimuli? The answer is yes. Plants also respond to the stimulus, but slightly in a different manner because they do not have this, nervous system like you people. So we respond with the help of our nervous system majorly, but plants do not have such a type of system, but they also respond to the stimulus. How? That we will study in control and coordination. Number next is, which is very important to decide whether something is alive, is the presence of the life processes. The organism, the body, the object must show these processes, life processes. The process of nutrition, okay, which is what? The uptake of nutrients, the uptake of food and utilization of food to get energy or to grow and develop the body, okay. It must show the process of respiration, that is the exchange of gases. And inshallah, once we'll take up the respiration, I'll make you understand about another sort of respiration which is taking place at the cellular level. I'll specifically write down intracellular respiration. In this case, an organism is capable of oxidizing the food, but at the cellular level to get energy. So these are going to be slightly different from each other, but for the time being, you just remember the process of respiration. Okay, respiration, I mean to say the intake of oxygen and removal of carbon dioxide, and you have yet another respiration taking place at the cellular level where you are basically doing what? You are basically oxidizing the food to get the energy out. Inshallah, we'll be taking up this later on. And then you have this process of transportation of substances from one place to another place, both in plants and animals. They must be able to show this as a life process. Okay. And last but not least, the process of excretion, the removal of wastes. So these are the conditions. If an organism, if an object, if something satisfies these conditions of movement, growth, if that body can repair, if that body can respond to the stimuli, if that body can perform the life processes like nutrition, respiration, intracellular respiration, transportation and excretion, then we'll call that object that is alive. So these are some very basic questions which you must have, understood after this lecture for today. Inshallah, in next lecture, we'll take up a very important topic, that is nutrition and its types. Till then, take care of yourselves. Fi amanillah.